Mhm.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Estrela Star Paths. And today we have Tera Blake, who is a meteorologist in Cincinnati, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about her career in meteorology. So thank you so much, Tara, for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Tara and I know each other personally, and I'm so excited to have her on our webinar tonight. She's going to share with you a little bit about her path and some kind of like tips and best practices if you are thinking about pursuing meteorology or even being on air and being a meteorologist. She provided me with a little bit of a bio, so I'm going to go ahead and read that, and then we'll start with some questions.
Okay.
So, meteorologist Tera Blake has been in TV business for nearly 20 years. She graduated from Northern Illinois University with a major in atmospheric science, meteorology, and a minor in broadcast journalism. She immediately started working in North Texas as a split shift meteorologist, covering the noon news and the 9 p.m. show during the week. And it being Tornado Alley, that's a good place to learn meteorology, I'm sure.
Yep.
And then moved to Charlotte, North Carolina for 1 year, and then came up our way to Northeast Ohio and worked for Cleveland Station for about 3 years, and is currently in Cincinnati, Ohio, and has is in her seventh year working for a station in Cincinnati. And she is a busy mom to three boys and a dutiful wife. So keeping her very busy and very awake. So she said her
Yes.
current shift is 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. So for those of you that are considering this, please know that it's not a 9 to 5. So I'm sure Tara will talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about that. But again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, friend.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about like why did you get into this major, or like what made you want to become a meteorologist?
So I don't have exactly the traditional story. My mom is an accountant, or was, she's retired now, and my dad is a farmer. So I grew up where numbers and the weather were very, very important. My dad and I would watch the storms, especially I'm from Illinois. So we could watch the storms from hundreds of miles away because it's so flat. If you've ever been to Cincinnati, it's extremely hilly. And so I do not get to do the same thing here. But I actually wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. I got into a speech class in high school, and out of a fishbowl picked meteorologist, and you had to be that profession for the month. And it was a God moment for me. It was like rushed over me after I did it for 1 week. I was like, I told my mom, I said, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't know why, but this is very, very interesting to me. And so my mom immediately got me in to shadow with one of the local TV stations just to see if it was something I was truly interested in. So I did that in high school and then decided, yep, this is it. This is going to be my major. And I'm a very goal oriented person. So, like, it was full steam ahead. It was taking a ton of speech classes, science classes, math classes, even in high school, because when you get into college, it gets really, really hard on those levels.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What about NIU stood out to you, or is it just one of those programs or majors that's kind of hard to find?
Yeah. So 20 years ago, I don't feel that old,
You
but
don't look that old.
thank you. But 20 years ago, Northern Illinois University was the only one with it as a major. And the University of Illinois had it as a minor, but it was not yet as a major. The only other school that was close to me was Valparaiso, which was actually a very good school. You had to have great ACTs for. I luckily got in, but it was for broadcast journalism and it wasn't taken as seriously. You had to do almost just as much coursework, but it didn't go quite as high. And so I felt like to save my parents' money, and to stay a little bit closer to home, and to get that full degree, that full atmospherical scientist degree, I would go to NIU. And for me, it was about a 2.5 hour drive from home. So it was
Okay.
kind of perfect. Learn to be an adult, learn to be a meteorologist, but be close to home just in case too.
Well, I love that you were leading with the atmospherical science degree and your love of the weather. And so obviously you're going to be using science skills, math skills.
Yes.
But adding that broadcast journalism piece, like that's definitely another element that not everybody who loves the weather is going to have. So can you speak to a little bit more about just like what the broadcast journalist side of
Side
it?
of it was, yeah. So a lot of times people that get into meteorology want to stay behind the camera. I was one of the oddities that wanted to be in front. I love people and I thought the interaction would be much better than sitting in a cubicle. I thought that I was afraid that I wouldn't appreciate the challenge as much as I would have if I was able to work in front of the camera. And so that was why I decided to tack on the journalism part because it gives you perspective on how to shoot, how to look right, what is important to get into a weather story. And a lot of times, especially now, you have to be a weather reporter first, and you only get to say work the weekends. That's kind of like that entry level job.
Okay.
I did not have to do that personally. I only had to do in Charlotte, they had me do one story every other week because I don't really have a ton of extra time. On the morning show, you tend to be on air for 4 to 5 hours. So there's not a lot of downtime for you in between forecasting and making all of your graphics. But when you're young and fresh, telling a good weather story, say, for example, what grows best in our climate, a story like that, you need to know how to shoot that. You need to know how to tell that story, what words to use, how to keep it precise. And if you have that journalism minor or even double major, you're going to be able to tell a much better story. So I thought that was a really important part to help me with the on-air side, because believe it or not, I am actually very nervous in front of people. I am really good in front of a camera and I feel comfortable. I literally feel like I'm talking to my mother or I'm talking to my friend. But if I get in a large crowd, I get very uncomfortable. I want to blend in, I want to be quiet. And so I was forcing myself. Journalism, get in front of people. You have to talk in front of people. Speech classes, just forcing me to try and get comfortable so that I wouldn't have an issue when it came to being on TV because there are other people in the room than just the
Yeah.
camera.
I mean, those are just totally different skill sets. Like you said,
Yes,
the strengths in math and science and the astronomical sciences end of it, and then broadcast journalism, just your communication, your
right.
literary devices, your stage presence, like things like that. And even like you said, the production side too, just being able to know like some of the cues and like what to do in front of the camera when it's on, the teleprompter. And you said
Right.
graphics too. So like you said creating your own graphics.
Yeah, I create all my own graphics.
Wow. So like a little
So
bit of computer science going on there.
there's a lot. Yeah, it's actually probably one of my favorite parts. And I have a son who's 11 years old, and he's very into creating graphics and like things, pictures for text. So he's clearly getting it from me. So it was in there. I just didn't know it. I thought that I was gonna love the weather part just as much, but I equally love that side of it, being able to tell that story. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you said like NIU was kind of that leader in the astronomical science and broadcast journalism field.
Yeah.
Do you know of, I mean, maybe it's caught on in popularity that there is some sort of like blended degree? I mean, being in Ohio, I mean, I know that Ohio University has a
Yeah.
strong meteorology and their
Absolutely.
School of Journalism is extremely strong. But I wonder if that is even a major right now. Like
Yeah,
they have to kind of
Valpo had it.
silos.
Valpo had it, but it was like looked down upon. So Valpo had it and then got rid of it and just went full blast degree now, rather than having a bit of a mix.
Okay.
Yes. Penn State is another really, really good school for meteorology. UCLA is also another really good meteorology school that tends to teach you to do both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight.
Yeah.
Do you think that someone who wants to become a meteorologist on air needs to follow this like more traditional path with their major selection? Is there a way to maybe not go into atmospherical science or broadcast journalism and get to where you are, do you think?
I think so, yes. There are degrees now that you can actually, like, say, Mississippi State. There are some people that get into TV, they get into the reporter anchor side of it, and they realize I kind of like weather and I kind of want to get the degree in weather. And so they'll go to Mississippi State, which is an online university. It's still a degree, but it's more kind of a certificate.
Okay.
And then we have these seals that you can get. So that can help you classify yourself as like a real meteorologist, but there's no there's no other way other than that one option
Okay.
because it is so serious. You have people's lives in your hands. And while a lot of this world has gone more online. When severe weather is happening, people always turn on their TV because they don't know what they're looking at, and it's scary, it's intimidating, and they want to know what they're seeing. And so because it's so critical, like by the government's rule, we have to be on air, say for a tornado warning, as a public service of safety. And
Okay.
so you can't just have anybody doing that. You have to have that true knowledge to be able to keep people safe. So that's why that step is very important, to have that meteorology degree, that atmospherical scientist degree.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're right. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like you're thinking about like, oh, you're on air in the morning show, and there's some like lightness about it, I would say. Like
Yeah,
you're
for
obviously
sure.
delivering the news, but it's not that serious. But there are those times where, like you said,
Moments.
people's lives are in your hands and you are the one who's analyzing the data. You are seeing, the severity. You're giving instructions to people on what they need to do to remain calm and to stay safe. So
Exactly.
it's a really good point. What would you say are three things or three qualities that would make a successful meteorologist,
Yeah.
or maybe like a student that is pursuing
Yeah.
meteorology? What do you think would be
I
three?
love this question, by the way. I
Very
did
good.
write this one down because I wanted to make sure and speak highly into it. So I think determined. I started NIU with 2,500 meteorology students. I graduated with 8, and 2 of us are still in the business. So one, he works for the National Weather Service and I work on TV. Because of the high math and the high science, you weed people out that can't handle it or don't want it anymore because it's a lot. But there's also a lot of business challenges. My first job, I made $15,000. I was $500 away from getting food stamps. And I say that because that is very normal to make very little. And again, it's part of the weeding out process. Who wants this bad enough? Who's serious about this? And then obviously, as you continue to move up the ranks, you can make a life and a living off of it.
Mhm.
But there's a real determination factor here of, can you make it through the battles to get where you want to go? So I think being determined is really, really important. Also being flexible. I mean, I'm from Illinois. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in North Carolina, as you mentioned. I've lived in Ohio. I now live in Kentucky. You have to be able to move away from friends and family. I would say a little bit more now. You could possibly live closer to home. There's a few more opportunities closer to your home, most likely, because there's not quite as many people getting into this business, because some got into it for the fame. And now that fame piece, everybody can be famous now. And so that doesn't appeal to as many people. But if you still love the news, you love figuring out the weather, you want to be an investigator, whatever it is, if those things still drive you, this is still a very important piece of society,
Mhm.
then you have to be flexible, because you most likely are going to be shuffled around until you get to a spot that you feel like you want to stay. Like, we truly love it here in Cincinnati. This has been kind of my perfect place for personality and work-life balance. And so this is one of those places where we feel like we can stay. So, but I've been, again, almost 20 years into this, and I'm just now feeling like I can stop and stay somewhere. So that's one thing that you've got to be really flexible with. And then confidence. You need to be teachable, but we are growing up in a world where everyone has an opinion. And you're going to have people that love you, and you're going to have people that do not, for no reason other than maybe the clothes that you're wearing or the hair or whatever it is, the way you speak, whatever it is. And so you have to be able to ignore that, but continue to grow in your profession, be teachable, listen to people's advice. We have a lot of consultants that come in and help us, and they pick apart everything. I mean, from what I wear on my lips to my eyebrows to my hair to my words to my blinking. I mean, I had a boss that counted how many smiles I did within my weather. It's crazy how much people can pick into you. So you've got to be strong within yourself, but realize like I can keep getting better at this. I'm going to get better and better and better. And you pick those pieces of those challenges
Yeah.
to help yourself grow, to help yourself grow in this business. So again, determined, flexible, and confidence slash teachable confidence.
Yeah, yeah, that those are excellent. That's really good. Like you've said, you've moved multiple times and you're trying to grow, and that speaks to your intention to grow in this
Yeah.
profession. Like you're going to a better opportunity, you're trying to go to a larger network or a better, maybe a better time.
Yeah.
Speaking of time,
Yeah.
we've joked about this that, I'll text her in the afternoon and she's like, I'm already asleep. Okay. She listed that her time for the Cincinnati news station was 2 a.m. to 10
To
a.m.
10
So
a.m.
again, that's another part of like the flexibility piece, like
Yeah.
to a wife and mom, and your boys are awesome and they're busy. Like, how do you find, I mean, I'm sure now you've been there 7 years, so you have
Yeah.
some sort of like structure established. Like, how do you deal with that type of balance, like the demands of a very non-traditional like hours?
I remember I had an internship at WGN with Tom Skilling, and one of his kind of like predecessors who worked on the weekend, he's actually since retired, told me I could not have it all. If I wanted to be in this business, I couldn't have the family that I wanted. And right then and there, I told myself, nope, I will have this all. And again, that's part of the determination factor. So I work 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. I try and get in bed by 5 p.m. Now, as you said, I have 3 boys, and I'm now getting into like, I have one that's in competitive soccer. I have two that are in baseball. They've got practices, they got games. And unfortunately, during the week, I can't have only 2 hours of sleep. I have to go to bed. So I have an incredible husband that does a lot and really does help out. So you do need a supportive partner. Once you get into this business, you're probably going to need a very supportive family as well, because it's hard on you. Um, but it's making sure that I really prioritize sleep as much as I can, not feel bad about it, realizing that's how I can keep doing this business.
Mhm.
But then maximize on the weekends when I actually get, time. But really the hours for TV are kind of, there's a middle ground that's normal. So like I have some coworkers that will work the 9 to 5 or say 10 to 6, but that's somewhat your lower paid people. So like your morning and your nights, and night shift is usually 4 to midnight, 4 p.m. to midnight.
Mhm.
So those are your people that are your higher ups. And so those are actually the prized times, even though they're crazy. Working
Yeah.
2 a.m. to 10 a.m. is crazy. And if there's weather, he should be like my chief at night should be leaving at midnight. I'm not supposed to get in till 2. Well, we can't go without being there. So we have to meet in the middle. So I'll have to be in at 1 a.m. and he has to stay until 1 if we have to babysit the radar and make sure that there's no severe weather trying to pop up while people are sleeping, which is very dangerous. So you have to be flexible even for that, because all of a sudden I'm
Yeah.
waking up an hour early, and that's hard on your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was going to say one of the questions that I had too were there any myths that you wanted to bust about the path to working in this? And you've spoken to a lot of that, just,
Yeah.
about the three traits that you just mentioned, like really needing to be like persistent and confident and determined. And obviously the flexibility piece. But I think you also kind of spoke to, I mean, I don't want to answer your own question that I'm trying
Yeah.
to give to you, but
It's
I
okay.
think in an industry and just like a world that everybody can give their opinion and they can put it on social media and they can just put like nasty things or like not supportive things on there, like the myths that it's like you said, a celebrity. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure there are celebrity aspects to it, maybe some perks or some recognition, but like you're doing real, very like serious work, like you
Right.
mentioned. So maybe what's like the top myth for people that want to get into broadcast
I
journalism?
definitely think that's part of it, that it's all roses. It's definitely more hate than I thought that I would get. I feel like I'm a personable person. Not that I have outright hate, but I there are people that do just polarizing. Um, but I feel like money, that's one that I always lead when I talk to any sort of students. Like, you've got to work. This isn't, you're not going to all of a sudden be a millionaire. Like I'm not making $1 million. I thankfully am able to have a great life, but it takes time and you really have to show your dedication through that. I think people think automatically you're on TV, you make a ton of money, you're rich, you know what I mean? You get special favors. And sometimes it's actually a negative to some people. I don't watch the news, the news is all bad. And that is one thing that I think is changing about the news. And I'm very thankful for it because I wanted this 20 years ago is that personality matters. Being you, being yourself matters. You can get your news anywhere. You can get it on your phone. You can get it from YouTube. You can get it from your neighbor. But you tune in to TV because you feel a connection with someone. You feel like you can trust them. You think they're funny. You think they're very knowledgeable. Whatever it is, you need to have that piece that someone can connect with. And so being you is the best way that someone's going to connect with you. So that's a really important part too. But again, like I said, you got to have a little bit of blockers up. When someone doesn't love you for you, you can't let that drag you down because that's not you, that's them.
Yeah. And like you said, with the connection piece, there are multiple outlets that people can get their weather or their news. So it is like, it's really cool when people decide that they connect with you and like you're who they look forward to getting their news from in the morning. So the flip side of that, like you said, if there's the haters out there and that's fine, but I'm sure you do have so many people that like love your broadcast, think you do a wonderful job. Like they tune in because they trust you and they want to hear it from you. So
well, and they feel like you're family. I mean, they see you every single day, sometimes more than their own families. And so they feel like they can say things to you like you didn't look as good at that dress today, or you looked really great today, or you did a great job reporting the weather, you were spot on. Because they feel like they know you. And your aunt sometimes says stuff that you're like, did you just say that to me? Well, they feel like you're family. And so it's the same kind of aspect.
Like you're a complete stranger, actually.
Yes.
What would you say is the proudest moment that you have in your career?
That's a really hard question for me. I mean, they always say like with the salesman, you're only as good as your last sale. And I kind of feel like that with meteorology in the sense that I'm only as good as my last severe weather event, or you know what I mean? I'm only as good as my last show because you have to show up every single day. Now, when I hear that kids watch and they now want to be a meteorologist and they want to meet me and they want to learn about it and they'll tell me their favorite things that I show, that like, I mean, that's everything because you're not only making a difference, you're helping someone realize their own dream. That's very, very cool. But if I do a great job in a severe weather event, I was great on timing. I was, when the actual event was happening, I was spot on. I was seeing the tornado before the National Weather Service. Those type of moments help me sleep at night. Like this is what I was supposed to do. God put me here for a purpose. So that's why I feel like it's hard to pinpoint one because I feel like I get to the next one each time that I work hard and really focus in, So I would say thankfully I've had a lot, but no one stands out because you got to keep growing. You got to keep learning. And I hope 20 years from now, I probably will still be working. I'm
You're
sure
saying you're not a millionaire from this, so we're gonna keep working.
Maybe 40 years from now, I'm still working. But that I just keep getting better at those things, because I'm not a perfect person and meteorologists completely talk off the cuff. We have no prompter. We only have our graphics. And so that's hard too. When you're on the spot and things are just firing, you've got to make sure that you're precise with your words. And that's a challenge, especially as things change by the minute.
This is not a question that I had, but I'm just kind of curious about this. Like, do you have like a prescribed amount of professional development that you're supposed to do, like to keep a certification or, you know what I mean? Because like you said, like things are evolving, technology's evolving, techniques are changing and evolving. So are you required to kind of like stay on top of that outside of your broadcast work?
No actual requirements. Obviously, the degree is a requirement. They do have those seals that you can get, but it's It's not a requirement by any particular, like not every shop says that you have to have that. But we have consultants that come, and
Okay.
we do yearly, you have to watch this many kind of development webinars, those sorts of things, but there's no exact number. It's just if you want to continue to get better, here's a great way to do it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I was just
Yeah.
curious. Okay. Our last thing, because then I'm gonna go let you get some sleep finally. But
It's
do
okay.
you have any other, I mean, I feel you did such a fantastic job of really like laying out like the pros, the cons, the real, fake of the
Yeah.
profession. But any advice for someone, because we really deal primarily with high school students and their
Yeah.
families. For a high schooler, what would be your advice for someone who's interested in this and really doesn't know how to get started?
I think we didn't really touch on internships as much. I think that is so important. And I really think that propelled me to get several jobs. I mean, even coming here to Cincinnati, which was my fourth stop, someone was still talking to me about my internship with Tom Skilling. So not only is it getting you college credit, but you are learning real time how this works. And then you're doing some grunt work, as all internships are, and you don't get paid in most situations. It may have changed. Maybe you get paid now, I'm not for sure. Some do, some don't.
Hmm.
But I think that is valuable. So I definitely think that set me apart because I immediately, as soon as I could, got an internship at a station in Rockford, Illinois, which was about 45 minutes from my school. I stayed at school over the summer so I could go to that internship. And then the following year, I went to WGN. So I went for a bigger internship to really see what the big dogs were doing. I mean, and
Yeah.
Tom Skilling was the #1 meteorologist. My gosh, probably for the last 20 years. He just recently retired, but he's brilliant. And so being purposeful with your time off once you're in college. High schoolers, as I mentioned, I think what really helped me, especially if you're not a Stanford child, if you are good at math and you're good at science, challenge yourself in high school when you've got that help from your teachers right there. Because you get into college and you have help and you have TAs, but you're not getting the one-on-one the way you would in high school. So like I went as high as I could in calc in high school so that I could have that background to just propel me to get even further in college quicker because there's a lot of math and a lot of science in this. I went the physics route. You can go either one, but I went the physics route and then I went all the way up through differential equations. So get as much help as you can. Don't be afraid to ask for help, but like try and go hard even as a high schooler because it's going to help your college career for sure when the
Great.
stuff gets tough, especially.
Yeah, that's way beyond what I could ever understand. So I appreciate that you're doing that hard work because that is not something that was of interest to me, but that's amazing. So I appreciate your time so much. I think
Yeah.
this was so informative and um would I be able to provide your contact information if anybody
Yes,
was okay
absolutely.
interested
Yeah.
to
I'd
reach
love to
out,
help.
or if you're one of our Estrela families down in Cincinnati or Northern Kentucky, make sure you tune in sometime between what, 5 and 9,
5 to 10.
5 to
Yeah,
10. Okay,
actually
perfect.
425. 425 to 10. Because who
That is
doesn't need that
wild.
much TV?
No, but some people tune in. I get up at crazy hours too, so I would
Yeah.
be watching that early. But thank you so much, Tara. We
Yeah.
really appreciate all of the insight and information and just for sharing all about what you do with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Good luck to all your students.
All right.
They'll
Thank
they'll be
you.
great.
All
Yep.
right. Thanks so much again, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, girl.
Bye.